The hopefuls, people who have decided to push on despite their circumstances. They've had valley and mountain moments, but ultimately decide hope as their destination. You're watching The Whitney Reynolds Show. Jody LaVoie is a woman who found her life's calling in the midst of loss. Her husband was shot and killed, and overnight she became the decision maker of their large company. In the midst of grief and this new role, she uncovered a need that could bring hope to the next generation. And that's where we begin. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here, Whitney. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, we just saw your story play out, and parts of your story are extremely hard. Can you take us back to being in that zone of where you discovered, I'm leading a company?
I can, and I can remember the specific day vividly when this happened. July 31st, 2014, beautiful day outside, sunny, got a knock on the door from a policeman, from my local suburban policeman, who told me that my husband had been gravely injured, and that was it. That's the only words he told me, and he said, here's a piece of paper. I want you to call the Chicago police officer. And I'm like, well, can you tell me what happened with my husband? And no, they wouldn't. I jumped in a car with my dad, who took me downtown to the hospital, and media was all out front. And that was so hard, lack of privacy. So I walk in, my husband's in surgery because he was shot at both in his head and in his abdomen. And so I never saw him. He never regained consciousness. And that first day, really the first few hours at the hospital, I was thinking about his parents, my children, our friends. And then the next morning is when I thought, oh, wow, I'm in charge of a company too. And so it was crazy.
Yeah, that experience has to be hard to relive on many levels. And going back so the viewers understand more, he was shot by a coworker.
Shot by a coworker that had been employed with us for 10 plus years. We'd been to their home, their personal home, and he had been demoted 4 days prior to this incident and continued to meet with my husband throughout these 4 days. And the day before this happened, my husband came home and he said, you know what? I think this is going to work. I think he's going to take this new role and be okay with it.
Oh, wow.
And then the next day he showed up at work with a gun.
Showed up at work with a gun. Yeah. So your husband, he ended up passing away, and
he did.
You were stuck running a company.
Right.
What was that like, having not done that?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, 24 hours into this, I realized, I'm in charge of this business as well. And fortunately, early on, the company was founded in 2000. It was all hands on deck back then. I was doing a little bit of everything, as was everyone else. And then I took 8 years off to raise our 3 daughters. However, Steve would come home every day and talk about what was going on at work, what the issues were, what the strategy was, the employees, the customers. So I felt really in tune with what was going on. I knew many of the employees and the customers, so that part wasn't that hard. And I remember I promoted from within a gentleman who was our chief operating officer to be in the CEO day-to-day role. And I was in the chairmanship role, but a very active chairmanship since we were the largest shareholders. And we had friends and family that were shareholders as well.
Wow.
So there's this feeling of, this is not just about me. This is about not only my family, this is about all of the employees at the business and this extended community that was really feeling the same pain.
And in the midst of that, you realized, maybe I don't know everything I need to know. Tell us what that was like, is saying like, okay, I see a gap here.
Right, and absolutely. So I didn't have a network of people to go to. And so immediately I found a network. And that to me is so important for either your professional growth and your personal growth. So I reached out to a couple of professional organizations, National Association of Women Business Owners, because I was in an industry that was technology and supply chain based.
Right.
There aren't a lot of women in that
Which is
industry
kind
at
of
all.
shocking in being in the year we are now. I mean, I'm kind of shocked to hear that because I always am like, women can do anything. But you're right, there are some gaps.
There are gaps, and women can do anything. And so, which is awesome. So I sought out that organization and Young Presidents Organization, YPO, and I joined what they called a forum, a group of 8 business owners of varying entities, and we would get together on a regular basis and try to help solve each other's problems. So they were really my sounding board. When I first came on board with Aerostream officially, I looked and I thought, oh, I don't even have a LinkedIn. I didn't have a resume. I didn't have a bio. And I called a friend, and she really put me in touch and helped set that up.
And then you actually took it a step further. You went ahead and stepped into another CEO role after realizing where these gaps were and how you could fill that for the next generation.
Absolutely. So, all of my stars aligned. What I'm doing today is just a combination of everything I love and what I've learned throughout my career thus far. I joined an organization called Female Strong, and I love the name in itself. Yeah. And it's all about empowering our next generation of female leaders. We work with middle school and high school girls to help build confidence, because confidence is what it's all about. And the decrease that girls have in confidence from when they're 8 years old, they feel about 80% confident they could do the job of the person next to them. By the time they're in their teens, that's down in the 30 percentile,
Really?
Which is terrifying. And so that's what we want to do. We want to stop that loss of confidence. And we do that. We have a program that's an entrepreneurship program just for girls. And it's called the Young Entrepreneurs Academy. We work with about 20 girls a year in one class, but we're growing, which is awesome. And they build a business, start to finish, from idea generation, business plan, putting that together, all the way to pitching Shark Tank-like style to an investor panel at the end. And these girls are rock stars. They come in, they're shy, they don't even look you in the eye, many of them. They don't shake hands. And at the end, they're just up there in front of 120 adults. There was this 6th grader last year that you would have no idea she was in 6th grade. She was just this powerhouse. So it's amazing to see this growth. And then they take it forward. It goes beyond, yes, they created a business, but now they have all these great skills. They have amazing public speaking skills. They can understand financials. They know a little bit about sales and marketing. Wow. So they've learned all these skills that are just going to help them later in life.
It's amazing just hearing you talk. It's the show The Hopefuls, and you're like, have me on the edge of the seat. Like you're full of hope. Not only like through the pain that you've lived through in your life and your story, you found hope even in those moments to keep going. And then what you discovered is like, okay, now I can generate hope for the next gen.
Absolutely.
So tell us, with the girls that you've seen, what is one of the most amazing stories that has come out of Female Strong?
Oh, there's so many, but I'll just tell the most recent one. So the girls, as they pitch to the investor panel, we pick one winner, if you will, that goes on to a national competition. So this girl from the suburbs, amazing, came from the foster care system. And she herself was African American, but was frequently paired in homes with non-African American parents who didn't know what to do with her hair. And so she talked about the story of she grew up with not great hair. And so she wanted to change that for girls in her situation. So she put together not only a book to help parents of fostering girls that are African American, help them learn how to do their hair, but she's taken on investigating hair care products as well.
Oh my
goodness.
And
just the glow in her eye and the passion she has. She's a senior in high school. She's got a GoFundMe. She's like wanting to take this book public come the end of the year. So she's just full steam ahead. And to see the relationship that she also had with her foster mother, who helped her a little bit as well, it's the pictures they're just glowing. I love it.
I love that. What recommendation would you have for people watching that are trying to find hope? What would you tell them how to dig deep and find hope?
Well, in me, it was something, frankly, that my mother instilled in me from day one, that you can do anything you set your mind to. And for me, there was no looking backwards. There was no feeling sorry. It was just, I have to make this work. And how am I going to make this work? Not only how am I going to make the business work, but how am I going to help my 3 daughters, who were 15, 12, and 9 at the time, find hope and a future and get out of the darkness, because there was some darkness for a while. But I love seeing them now. They're all in a good place. It took work.
It takes work.
There was a lot of work, but it's all worked out.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me.